Hi! Welcome to my channel if you somehow found it. After like years of hearing, hey, why don't you open a YouTube channel? Guess what I did? I opened the YouTube channel. And this is my first ever video, so yeah, we'll see how it goes, right? Right. So, ironically, after months into the production, I was set on doing a video about Lara Croft. And the script was done, like, I was recording, like, everything was done. Then, this happened.
We must all cure ourselves of the entire cult of the Absolute. Traced people like you. People with parasites in their brains. All the way here from Baldur's Gate. You may just be the godsend we've been praying for.
Guess it's time to throw everything into a trash bin because, good God, I love this game so much. I already played the early access way before when it was first released, and I instantly fell in love with the game, despite the fact that it was quite broken and buggy at the time. But yeah. So, I have been a gamer for a very long time, and I'm an avid RPG player. There is magic in the art of role-playing. Role-playing and being someone else makes you think outside the box. It forces your imagination and boosts your creativity. You can either be yourself in a fantasy setting, or maybe someone completely different from your own personality. But what I like most about RPGs is always the characters. Their reactions to your choices and how that fits into their personality or your influence on them and so on. Hence why I created this channel in the first place. I want to talk about characters. Specifically about Astarion today because I'm madly in love with him. Like, dear God, I am in love with this man. He's so precious. I love him so much, dear God. I just want to roll him into a blanket and hug him and... Anyway. Baldur's Gate 3, that's something I never expected. They managed to do every single companion complex and unique. Look guys, I've played a lot of video games and I'm guessing you did too. And you should be aware by now that creating in-depth, complex, yet lovable characters is a very hard thing already. Immersing your players is even harder, and Larian is very good at this. With the Divinity series or Baldur's Gate 3, they always manage to impress me with their uniqueness of every single companion you have in the game. You got some amazing writers out there, Larian. I hope you're still hiring because I know someone. Yes, I'm still very salty about that. Anyway, let's talk about Astarion. Before we do, however... Before I begin, I'd like to focus more on Astarion's spawn ending rather than the Ascendant ending. I will probably do another video regarding that one, also the Dark Urge one, but yeah, let's just focus on the good one right now, okay? I don't think I can handle the Ascendant one just yet, but we'll see how it goes, okay? Just, yeah. So, as the very dearest voice of Astarion himself, Neil Nibbon says, survivors find a way to survive. If you can get through things like that, you can find the joy in the things that you do have in your life. You can create your own life in the way you want. And I totally agree with it. In addition, despite people being more aware of mental health now, I have to say, sometimes trauma and mental health still tends to be handled poorly in media. And in turn, people can also perceive trauma poorly because of it. Look, I have been writing and analyzing characters for as long as I can remember, and I can clearly say this. The way you handle their trauma makes or breaks the story. Because first of all, mental health is already an area with a lot of stereotypes, which also tends to become very harmful once it's been showed wrongly. If you want people to understand or emphasize with a character, it's always best to show their struggles and how they deal with it, rather than making this whole issue their personality. This is the case with many current media nowadays, unfortunately. People need to understand that even if one's personality mirrors their struggles, they won't act the way people stereotypically expect from them, since we are all individuals. And for example, let's take schizophrenia, which is one of the most misrepresented mental issues in the media to date. People with schizophrenia are always shown as these... I hate saying this, but these insane people who are criminals and are violent, for example. Or there's always this weird horror supernatural influence, adding to the centuries of misunderstanding of demonic possessions and whatnot. All I can say is, if you had the chance of meeting an actual person who has schizophrenia, you'll realize that is definitely not the case. But years of misrepresentation makes it harder for them to find a job or being accepted by others for who they are, for example. I know this has nothing to do with our beloved vampire, but I just wanted to highlight how writing a character without a thorough research can affect the audience's views on them. Like, duh, okay, pretty sure there isn't a 239-year-old vampire spawn who is constantly abused by his vampire lord master or whatever, but there are people who are actual survivors of abuse out there. And despite D&D being a fantasy setting, PTSD is a real thing. Heck, Neil Newman himself mentions how hard it was to play him at times because some things hit too close to home. Like, yeah, all I'm saying is, especially to the people who write characters and stories for a living, do your research. Handle these topics sensitively. Avoid using stereotypes at all costs and avoid using these situations as shock values. So, yeah, let's talk about Astarion. In Astarion's case, everything I mentioned before is so well done. Because when you first meet him, all you see is this stereotypical Dracula with some really evil tendencies or whatnot. But anyone with high enough perception skills could actually tell there are a lot of layers behind this sassy, sadistic, manipulative, flirty vampire man. A lot of people I know immediately hated the guy when they first met him, then slowly started liking him. Or not. Because he keeps disapproving of everything, apparently. Yeah, the disapproval. We're gonna touch on that one later, too. Astarion's masquerade quickly falls when it's time to bite you, and you see him for what he truly is. Like, a vampire, a slave to Samway. God, I'm so bad at British accent. Don't judge me. After that scene, however, Astarion lays everything out for you. He is very open about his issues if you choose more understanding options. At least compared to our other companions, with the exception of Karlach, but like Karlach doesn't have much to hide anyway. Yeah, Karlach is a munchkin and I love her. I think Astarion's openness makes a lot of sense when you consider the only interaction he has with others for 200 years is either seducing them or just running away from them so he wouldn't be hunted down. And when he's not having any interactions, he's being tortured. And now that he's free, he has no idea what a real human interaction looks like. So he's like, listen, I'm a vampire and I feed on animals. I also have a messed up master called Cazador, so here you go. I'm not saying he trusts you, but since you are all traveling together, I guess he just wants it out in the open. To an extent, that is. But something has to be cleared. The guy is obviously a chaotic neutral. So I'm not an Astarion apologist, alright? He has a very twisted view of the world and he's definitely not an innocent person to begin with. He loves gore, he loves offing people, letting children get deleted. He even likes it when you hurt animals. His approvals and disapprovals are extremely random. Unless you figure out the reason behind that pattern. You see, Astarion hates it when you play the hero and promise to help people. He wanted to be saved and free too, but nobody helped him. Because in other people's eyes, he was a monster. But on the other hand, he was also a victim.
The strong had 2 centuries to pluck me from torture, but no one came.
You just brush it off and say, I'll see what I can do, but like no promises. He stays neutral, like no disapproval or no approval. It's when you promise something and give people hope, that's when he instantly disapproves.
Cazador, my old master, liked to toy with people too. Let them think there was hope right until the end. Until he snatched it all away.
There are usually, not always, remember everyone is an individual, 2 outcomes with long-term abuse victims. Either they can be the ones who stand against abusers, or they can also become abusers. When a person has been through the worst things, the abuse and the chaos can be more familiar to them than kindness and understanding. That is exactly what we're seeing in Astarion's case. In addition, the guy has been turned into a vampire at the age of 39. 39. In case you don't know, the D&D lore, elves reach sexual maturity the same pace as humans, but mental maturity is usually reached around 100 years old. I mean, it's up to them to declare it, but yeah. So, Astarion was mentally a literal teenager when he was turned. And 200 years of torture and abuse, no wonder Astarion doesn't even remember anything about his past. There is basically nothing left of him aside from the pain and misery. Poor guy didn't even get to choose his adult name when you think about it. So why does he have to be kind when the world treated him like dirt and all he knew was pain and misery? Plus, this is a mask he knows how to wear well, because this is the mask he always wore. He wants power, not heroism. He wants to be safe. And of course, he'll disapprove of what you're doing in that case because he didn't get treated any better. His mind is constantly on survival mode, so why should he go do the extra effort for someone else? And before you aggressively write on the comments like, I'm a good, he disapproves, blah blah blah. Yes, you can romance Astarion as a good character. it is possible to befriend or romance Astarion if you're good. Because Astarion values loyalty more than what you're doing, basically. If you respect and support him, that's usually enough to get his approval on medium. I mean, wow. If you treat people with kindness and respect, they'll open up to you. How shocking, right? Ugh, anyway. TLDR, he's a big mess in Act 1. Astarion's character development is one of the most satisfying character developments I've seen for a while. I'm going with the romance angle in case you didn't realize, but overall, even in friendship it's similar. So, first of all, I have to say this up front, I absolutely abhor the "I can't fix him" trope. I think it's very toxic, and like, even if I respect those who love it, I guess, go get therapy. Because, in my opinion, nobody is perfect enough to actually fix someone else. Everyone goes through life differently, and everything people go through is way different than the others. The pain, the hurt, the bad things they've done is all a part of themselves. So nobody has the right to fix anyone, in my opinion. However, you can heal together, or with the right support system, you can help others heal themselves. You can't just change people, but you can influence them to get better. And I love the fact that this is the case in Astarion's romance too. You see, conflict and disagreement is a part of any relationship, be it friendship or romance. Especially if you're a good player, Tao and Astarion will always disagree on certain things. And I have to say this now that it came up, people are taking approval or disapproval too seriously in this game. Because, like, okay, most of us come from BioWare games, so it's understandable. For example, in Dragon Age Origins, approval was super important, so I get it. But unless you're doing something that absolutely pisses off the others, I don't think it's much of a big deal. It's not really a good idea to go with whatever people say anyway. I mean, after all, you're your own person. Plus, having those conflicts are a big part of the game because everyone is going through hard times. Everyone has something to worry about, and the biggest issue is, at that point, of course, is the tadpole or the absolute. So, bonding over hard times is an amazing trope that I adore. I mean, Baudelaire Welch, the narrative designer, explained it very well here.
How do romances work in real life? You don't just do someone's quest and say some nice things and then get a sex scene. When we've been developing romance scenes in Baldur's Gate 3, we've been trying to show two people genuinely struggling through a hard time and supporting one another. And you're not going to be the same person as you are in Act 1 as you are in Act 3. Neither is your partner. Your relationship is going to have to grow along with the game's story.
In Act 1, Astarion is basically trying to figure out everything that's been happened to him. He's also actively trying to seduce and manipulate you for one purpose: his own safety. Because if you like him and trust him, you'll have a harder time betraying him. He straight up admits this when you go to the Moonrise Towers.
Look, I had a plan. A nice, simple plan. Seduce you, sleep with you, manipulate your feelings so you'd never turn on me. It was easy. Instinctive. Habits from 200 years of charming people kicked in. All you had to do was fall for it. And all I had to do was not fall for you. Which is where my nice, simple plan fell apart.
As I said, he didn't have any decent human interaction in 2 centuries, so he uses the thing he knows best: manipulation and seduction. But since Tao is nice to him, he is surprised and doesn't understand that how or why. Astarion still doesn't know who he is at this point. This is actually more apparent in this alternative confession scene. The moment you stand by him against Araj, he notices 2 things. You are definitely different than most people he met, that he can trust you, and deep down he still feels like that spawn Cazador created. With that scene, you show him that he is his own man, and he can indeed choose who he is.
The entire reason for my existence was to seduce anything with a pulse. And every instinct I have tells me that nothing's changed. I'm still just a means to an end. You made me see that I never stopped thinking like I was his slave. Even in freedom. But I'm more than that. More than a thing to be used.
When you finally learn what Astarion's scars mean and eventually reach Baldur's Gate, things start to get interesting. The first thing is, when you give Yenna food, he actually approves, which actually surprised me. But right after I donated some gold to the refugees and he disapproved, so yeah, well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. He isn't fond of helping people who are capable of helping themselves, but a hungry child he approves because he knows what hunger is after all. But as you get closer and closer to his quest to find Cazador, things get intense. He is very afraid of what Cazador can do. He has to be free for his own sake and for your sake too. The power this ritual offers is making him crave it. Being helpless for so long, and now that he has the means to take it, it intoxicates him. You see, there's something I love about this game. You can let companions do the talking, handle the situation themselves, and basically make them take the lead from time to time, which is very rare in RPGs actually. But sometimes you also have to save them from themselves. When you enter Cazador's crypt, Astarion is both absolutely disturbed at what he saw, but also still seems stuck in the cycle of feeling weak and the yearning for power because of Cazador. You can actually confront him about this, telling him that if you met him a few years before this, you'd be in one of these cells, which I realized catches him off guard a bit. When you convince him to stay the way he is, he definitely isn't happy about it. However, he still slices and dices Cazador in pure rage, which I bet many of us also took great pleasure in because, like, the bastard had it coming. However, Astarion later falls into his knees and starts crying, which is absolutely gut-wrenching to watch. Thing about trauma is, when you're finally free of your abusers, you don't get instantly happy. Grief will always weigh higher than happiness. Grief of years of pain and suffering. Grief of who you could have been if this person never existed, for example. And then Astarion just feels numb. But the thing is, he finally sees the intention behind your decision, why you had to save him from himself, because you saw more in him, another person who he could become, and he thanks you for it. there are more things I wish to discuss, like how his meeting with Sebastian visibly affected him badly, or how his insecurities immediately take effect when you go poly route with Halsin, or try to get on with it with the Drow twins, or how he immediately blames himself if you try to break up with him, especially if you open your mind to the astral tadpole and tell him you're a monster. He tries to make you feel better, my god. Or how he likes it when you actually keep the owlbear, because nobody would probably keep an owlbear around, since to everyone that's a monster too. And I think that kind of reminds him of himself. Or he looks so sad when Shadowheart says we are all monsters in the making. So yeah. Astarion is an amazingly written character. Larian's writing team is just amazing, and let's give all the props to Stephen Rooney, who wrote Astarion in the first place. You, sir, nailed it so good, and I'm still shocked by it. Just wow. Just wow. And I mean, let's just address the elephant in the room. Neil Newbin. Like, come on, Neil Newbin. Like, do you ever look at someone and go, yep, this guy is gonna play this character amazingly? Because that is exactly what happened. As soon as I saw Neil Newbin being listed as Astarion's voice actor, I was already very, very impressed by him as Elijah Kamsky and Detective Reed in Detroit Become Human. So there's like also something about certain British actors who don't have their IMDb list all the way up, like, but are top tier at acting. Like, where are your other roles, sir? Like, what the hell? The other example I can think of is actually Steve Valentine, who is Alistair in Dragon Age Origins, for example. Do you guys remember how good the acting was as Alistair? Like, damn. I am just very impressed. Like, I already had high expectations considering it was Neil Newbin, but damn, he pulled it off. He pulled it off really good. Just, I am so impressed. And I have to say, these people did their research and pulled it off like a boss. And I am so here for it. I still have so much to say, but the thing is, I'm going to cut myself some slack because it is my first video and I'm still trying to figure out how this all works, basically. So, wow. How do people do this for a living? Like, damn. And hey, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more of these, I guess. I mean, I will probably do, as I said, Dark Urge and the Ascendant one when I'm in the mood. I'll probably do the Dark Urge first because I'm not ready for the Ascendant yet. So, yeah. And, yeah, leave a like. Maybe it'll motivate me, I don't know. So, yeah. See you guys later. Sayonara.